scripture. There's an insert to bulletin, Philippians 3, verses 12 through 14. I'm not saying that I have this all together, that I have it made, but I am well on my way, reaching out for Christ, who has so wondrously reached out to me. Friends, don't get me wrong. By no means do I count myself an expert in all of this, but I've got my eye on the go, where God is beckoning us onward. To Jesus, I'm off and running, and I'm not turning back. This has got good news for all of God's people.
Thanks be to God.
What's your back up? Would you bow your heads with me, please? Lord, I ask for your grace and your wisdom, not only in my words, but in our hearing. May what we hear be you. In your Son's name, amen. We're at the end of a pretty long sermon series. This is week 7 in the New People, or New Places for New People sermon series that we picked up at conference during this last summer. It feels like we've been going at this for quite some time, but there's been a lot of ground to cover because we've had to talk about just the idea, the understanding that when we have new places for new people, in those moments, we give people an opportunity to experience the Christ that we know and the grace and the hope that we've been familiar with all this time. But we're opening the door and finding some space for people that might not have even thought about darkening the door of the church. I'm not worthy. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to sit in a room full of those hypocrites. But to be able to open up a new space so that people can understand that and experience what we have from the ground up. Not walking into an existing group that already loves each other, which is tough, but in that moment when they can understand and greet one another and develop their own small community. And then those moments when we can connect that community with the larger believing group and to understand that we are truly all brothers and sisters in Christ. So that's what we've been talking about for the last 6 weeks now. And quite frankly, we're going to be talking about it again today. And just if you think that we're going to be finished on that, you're going to be hearing about it next Sunday from Carol Meyer. I'll talk about that in a second. But we've talked about how to make places and spaces in our homes, in our hearts, in our community, and even right here at our church. We've talked about new formats and new moments when we can carve out some space and clear some space. And we did sort of another Marie Kondo clearing space so that new things could happen in those areas. We've talked about those new people as well, quite frankly, those that are on the edges. It was drawn very, almost painfully into my awareness just during this last week that I tend to, I like you guys. You know, I really like, you guys and the folks over at Bismarck but what happens is that I tend to get just kind of bubbled up with y'all. I don't get out much other than that. So when the idea of, well, Rick, do you have any other friends besides people in church? I had to stop and think for a second. A couple, maybe. The people that we're asked to reach out to are not necessarily our regular group of friends. In fact, if all of your friends are in church, branch out. Because if all of your friends are in church, who are you going to invite to church? The people that are already here. Does that make sense? If we're going to meet new people, if we're going to reach new people for Christ, we got to find some new people. We got to get out more. And that's what this whole series has been about, or at least that is part of it. Which is why last week we talked about leaving room. So God bless you if you moved. That's great. If you didn't, we're still working on you. That's all right. It's all good. But that's been all about prep. What we need to talk about now is getting out. We're called not to stay here, not to come here, not to just be here in this place. We're called to go. To go into the world. The great commission that Jesus offered at the end of Matthew is to go into all of the world and preach and teach and baptize in my name, and I will be with you, even to the ends of the earth. We are not called to come and stay here in this moment, in this place. This is where we come to get our tank full, and how we come to get reminded of what we're supposed to be about, but it's out there where we put this all into practice. Our mission as a denomination is to make new disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. It draws us outward, to be in relationship. And quite frankly, that's something that people still crave. You know, if we're looking at saying, well, you know, we're more connected than we ever were, ever have been. Yeah, we may have, you know, several hundred friends on social media and, you know, a bunch of likes on Facebook and all that. But, you know, quite frankly, I don't know. I'll confess to you guys just one little bit. Social media gives me the opportunity to keep the world at arm's length. I can manage all of that contact and all of those friends and all of that stuff pretty handily through just a short message on Facebook to get people kind of up to speed on what Rick's doing. A quick tweet, a short text. And I've let people know exactly the amount of Rick that I think I'm comfortable sharing. And that doesn't necessarily let people in. We do that social media thing a whole lot, and quite frankly, pretty well. And it allows us to keep people at bay. You want to know why social media is so popular? Because we are so hungry and thirsty for that relationship, that connection, that ability to be with one another, that we'll take whatever scraps the world is willing to give us. Whatever little bits of Rick or Justin or whoever. And it doesn't satisfy. It whets our appetite, and we are hungry for more, so we keep reading. And we stay on Facebook until all hours of the night just to get a glimpse of who people are. And maybe share a little bit about what we are. And it still doesn't satisfy. People are desperate to be in a relationship, true, real, honest relationship with each other. And when you find it, doesn't it feel right? Doesn't it just connect with someplace deep in your soul that makes you feel fed? Carol Meyer, next week, I told you I'd warn you about this, but Carol Meyer is going to be talking about community. And what we say we want, and quite frankly, what we wind up doing. And then what that vision that Christ has for us as we gather together in community. This is what Paul was talking about. We get stuck in these moments of partial sharing where we just barely share a little bit about what we are, but it's not quite what we need to share. We start competing with one another as well when we compete with each other in our jobs and maybe even in our church. I get the best spot or the best seat or the best position or whatever. You feel a little pride for that. It's not about the competition. Those are contract moments. That's that moment when I'm going to do this, just exactly what I say I'm going to do, not much more than that, and then I'll have my obligation full. That kind of contract relationship, that kind of reliance on the least that I can do, that'll get me by, that'll get me in the door, that'll get me a good seat or a good moment. Paul understands that kills relationships. That pattern of scorekeeping and that pattern of minimal sharing and that pattern of just enough to get by starves our relationships to death. In fact, what eventually winds up is that we start looking at how that relationship is going to benefit me. You know, if I look at a relationship with Gary and I say, well, how is Gary going to, fill my needs and satisfy what I've got? How is Gary going to be that person that's going to fill the gaps that I've got? What am I going to get out of knowing Gary? That return on investment kind of relationship stuff. And if that's how you look at the people around you as just an investment that you can put into that you're going to get exactly what you need back, you start making people into things that we can use and not people that we can know. Making them into objects. And Paul understood that that kills us. The verses leading up to this particular couple of verses in our scripture lesson this morning, Paul names all of the ways that he had in keeping score, in holding his position with the Christian church in the Hebrew church, the Hebrew community at that time. And in fact, he was a real stakeholder in that Hebrew community. He was a Hebrew born of a lineage of Hebrews that went all the way back to Jacob. He claims his lineage back to the tribe of Benjamin, a prestigious group. He says that he was a Pharisee among Pharisees, a Jew amongst Jews. He was that person of power and prestige, and he lived that moment. So that when he went out to hunt Christians and persecute them, that became one more moment when he gained fame in that community. And it was all of that power and all of that prestige that he felt that that's how he made his identity. And in the few verses right before the passage that Tim just read, Paul says that I gave it up as loss. It was nothing. I tossed that away. Because Paul recognized in that moment that being in relationship was much more important. That relationship of faith in God through Christ, in that faith that bound him to his brothers and sisters. So much more than the contract that he had before that is, okay, God, if I do this, then you'll bless me and you'll do that, and we're squared, right? I don't have to be in a relationship with you. All I need is this sort of this for that kind of I'll scratch my back and you'll scratch your back and you'll scratch. Anyway, there's back scratching going on. And once you're done, you're done. It's not a relationship. I can put that off to the side and not think about it again until Sunday morning comes around. I need more than that. I'm hungry for more than that. I need that relationship that Paul was talking about in this moment, that it's not about how much I can do just to satisfy this moment and be righteous under the law. It's about a relationship that Christ showed Paul in that vision that he had, in the Christians that he knew, and the understanding that he came to. It was that relationship that drew Paul into this moment. Paul embraced that relationship with God and Christ through faith, not through scorekeeping. Not through barely sharing, but through sharing as much as he possibly could. In today's passage, rather than boasting like he did before, he admits that there's still room to go. And that's our passage this morning. Paul admits that God's not finished with him yet. I still yearn for that prize of deeper relationship with Christ. God still has things to reveal and to work with me and through me. And God is not finished with me yet. My contract is not signed and completed. It is a covenant that will last until my dying breath and beyond. It is that relationship that feeds our hearts. When Paul admits that he's not there yet, Paul admits that God still has things to do. Now, I've always been a little skeptical of those folks that say they've got it. I've got it. I got it all figured out. I'm righteous. I don't break the laws. I fulfill all the commandments, and I'm righteous, and I've got it. God and me, we're like this. I've been a little skeptical of folks like that because I keep wondering, did God surprise you at all? Is God going to surprise you in some new face, new moment, new something or other that you think you've already got it all figured out. You got God in a nice, tiny little box. God's bigger than your box. Bless you. God's bigger than any of the boundaries that you can put him into. Those people that have fulfilled their contract, I'm kind of sorry for them. Because quite frankly, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm looking forward to this afternoon. I'm looking for the trip that I'm going to be going on. I'm really looking forward to that because I can't wait to see what God's going to do this time. How God's going to show me God's face, God's hope, God's presence in a completely different culture. Well, Guam's kind of America, but you get the idea. I want God to surprise me. Because I don't think God's finished with me yet, and I hope I'm not finished with God yet. It's one of the reasons why I really like working with kids. I ran into Ron Beaton, who's an old friend of mine, who's the new pastor of Memorial United Methodist Church over in Farmington, and has been a long-time friend of the sanctuary camp community. And Ron's been making noises like, and he's pastor, and he's been making noises like he'd like to kind of get reconnected with sanctuary camp. And so I saw him last night at the Baby Boomers concert in Farmington. Awesome night, by the way. Came down the steps, and I'm, Ron, how you doing? He said, yeah, how was sanctuary camp? And I'd really like to get there. And I found myself saying, well, yeah, but Ron, I don't know they've got room for 2 pastors. He said, we kind of joked about it, he said, I'd be a counselor and all that stuff. Yeah, sure. That ate at me all through the rest of the concert because I had shut this guy down. He's a friend of mine. He's not in competition with me, and I was looking at him as just that. I stuck around after the concert, one of the reasons mainly so I could talk to Ron. He came down the steps and we chatted for a couple of seconds. He said, look, Ron, I'm sorry. I really think we could have 2 pastors at sanctuary camp and it'd be fine, and I don't have to, I'm looking forward to the ways that God is going to surprise me and the people that go to camp with whatever this new thing is going to be. And Ron's an amazing pastor. I can't wait. Now, once I finally got over it, I can't wait to work with this guy. But that's how covenant works. You can't wait to see what God's going to do new in your life and through your life and with others. That's the faith of Paul. And I'm trying to get just a little bit of that. I struggle towards the prize myself. Like Paul and I are both moving on to perfection. That's the world that I think I need to live in, or I would like to live in. A world shaped by the curious and the growing, not the I got it and I'm satisfied. When I have to worry or think about that first part of Genesis when the text says that we are made in God's image. But the image of God that I see, if that's what we're made in, we are curious animals. We are always striving, always growing, always looking to stretch the boundaries, always looking to learn more about God's creation and what's around us and who's around us. We're always looking to find out more. And quite frankly, I want to be that surprised. I want to learn more. I want to find grace when it seems lacking. I want to find God in the stranger's face, and I want to find hope in the midst of grief. Because I want God so desperately to surprise me in moments that I don't expect. It all comes through a relationship that shows up in the space between Creator and creation. It's sharing that gospel, that good news that multiplies us and multiplies God's good news through us. It multiplies grace and hope and peace through you and I. And that is my prayer for you this morning. May God show you the grace in yourself and the new person in your life that needs that grace and hope. And may that person be open to hear. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Gracious and loving God, open us up. Leave that gap in our hearts that is always willing and understanding and looking for you in new places with new people. And may that gap, once filled, open again to find the next and the next. In your Son's name.